Hello. Welcome back. Right, for our next panel, we've got a panel entitled Digital Data, How to Use the Information at Your Fingertips to Increase Profit. Now, we know information is vital in this data-driven world, whether it's for your website, inquiries, mailing lists, or social profiles. There are plenty of ways to gather this information and use it to sell cars. However, with new rules and regulations, it's now more important than ever to ensure you're doing it in the right way. So please welcome to the stage my guests who will help me dissect this topic. Hello. Welcome. Right, a few introductions first. On my left, we have Nona Bowkis. Is I pronounce that right?
Bowkis.
Bowkis. She's a solicitor and GDPR consultant at Lawgistics. Then we've got Head of Global Automotive Partnerships at Oracle, David Kaufman. Allison Nau, who's the Managing Director of Cox Automotive Data Solutions, whose company covers everything from big data infrastructure to data science and valuations. And then on the end there, we've got Wendy Swaine, who's the Head of Retail and Data at data-driven company Cap HPI. Welcome. Okay, let's kick things off. So at the moment, the big topic that's probably worrying everybody is GDPR. Is there any way that this offers new possibilities for dealers rather than just one big headache? Nona.
Me, or possibilities. Well, my point of GDPR is it's been over-egged and over-complicated, and it doesn't need to be complicated. If you've got a data list of your existing customers, or even people that have approached you but haven't gone through with a sale, you're free to market to them as long as you offer them the option to opt out. You don't have to go through all the consent hurdles that a lot of the GDPR marketeers have been telling you have to. GDPR is actually quite straightforward for car dealers, and the important point for dealers is they need to make sure the people processing their customers' data are also GDPR compliant. I'm not going to sell iVendy, but I've spoke to them today, and they've already got their ISO 27001 in place, which means they're compliant. And that's what you've got to look at, really. Make sure the people who are processing your customers' data are GDPR compliant. But other than that, if they're your customers, you can do quite a lot with that data.
So what have dealers been doing wrong that you've experienced?
Kind of writing out to people saying, do you want to consent to staying on our marketing list? And if you're asking people to consent, a lot of people aren't. So they're losing a lot of their marketing lists. So what you want to do is say, do you want to opt out? Because chances are people won't bother to opt out, and you will keep your marketing list live. But if you offer them the option to opt in, they are probably not going to press that button, and you're going to lose part of your marketing list. But generally, car dealers, it's not a big ask for them. Data protection's been around since 1998 Act. Nothing very much has changed, really. GDPR has just been over-egged, I think.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, so where we play is more in the customers who a dealer doesn't know, people who are shopping for vehicles outside of a dealer's walls. And GDPR, the opportunity that it represents is actually to improve the quality of what's available and to simplify who's in market and who is actually available for you to target in a way that is privacy compliant, that does have the right consents and opt-ins, and you remove a lot of the poor quality audience that might have existed in the past. And so it's an opportunity to definitely hone in on an actually qualified person to drive them to your site and to drive more leads.
Allison, what's your experiences?
I think it's important to recognize that consent is only one basis for processing personal data, both under the DPA as well as under GDPR. Legitimate interest is another basis that you can use for processing personal data. So if you think about within your set of customers, perhaps someone's purchased a car, you'd potentially like to offer them notice that their car would be due for servicing after 10,000 miles. That's something that's actually in the interest of the consumer to know, because it's about maintenance of their car. It will help them improve the value of that vehicle. It's in your interest as a business to notify them that, obviously, so that you can get that that repair. But that doesn't require explicit consent from the consumer for you to provide that as a service to them, because it's in their interest to know that. And that's, I think, something that is overlooked, and all the talk about GDPR and the focus around consents is that that's only one basis for legal processing.
Wendy, do you find GDPR a headache?
Within Cap HPI, obviously, we're classed as a processor and controller, depending on which product we've got. So it's been an interesting subject for us to look at as a holistic helicopter view of our state of data with regards to anything we need to deal with urgently, anything as we've got a plan, anything that we can put into the plan. We've been ISO 27001 for a number of years now. So it's given us opportunities to actually have a look at, is there anything else that we need to do, and we need to ensure that our dealers are doing. There's not much personal data, as in the consumer details held within ours, other than the consumer check. But obviously the VIN-VRM being GDPR, we have to ensure that people are processing that correctly. So it's given us an opportunity to look at things. The instant change that we've had to make is with regards to the DVLA change in the V5. That's made a big impact instantly. It was supposed to change this Friday. It actually changed on the 25th of April. So our systems changed last week. Obviously, a bit of a rush job. But basically just, remaining compliant and working with people. The dealers, as you're saying, it's about the consent side of it, engaging with the customer, ensuring that you are doing the best for them. We've all had the emails with regards to opt-in, opt-out. I think everybody's inbox has been full of them. But it's, making sure that they're doing something purposeful for the consumer owning the vehicle.
And with dealers seeing this fast approaching deadline for GDPR, what do they need to do now to get it fixed? I mean, there is so much information and misinformation about it. If they're going to go back to their showrooms tomorrow and sort one thing out ahead of the deadline, what would that be?
Well, really, the first step is to get a data audit. And I'm going to be talking about this in the workshops that we're doing as well in more detail. But dealers need to know what personal information they've got, because they are the controller of that data. So they are looking after that person's data. They need to work out where it comes into the business, whether it be a sales invoice, or it might be an employee's details. So work out where it comes in, what you do with that data, what your legitimate basis is for processing that data. And we've talked about consent already and legitimate interest. For your employees, it is going to be a contract, because you need your employees' data to be in a contract with them. Performance of a legal obligation is another lawful reason to hold data. You've got to pay their tax and national insurance, so you need their data. So you do not need the consent of all your employees to be processing their data. But that's really what you've got to do. So look what data comes into the business, log its journey throughout the business, and find out where it finishes. So if you've got invoices, you probably want to keep those for the current year +6 for HMRC purposes. You need to make a log of that. We keep them. Then you decide how you destroy them at year 7. Do you get a guy, an official shredder guy, come in, get rid of those? Do you keep them in your loft for 20 years, like a lot of the dealers seem to be doing from there? That's probably not the safest way. You've got to make sure you look after that data. You know where it is on the journey, and when you're going to get rid of it, because you can't keep anything that you don't need. If you don't need it, don't keep it.
And just to add to that, one of the things, if you think about disposal of data, is the disposal of the personal aspects of it. So you can still retain a lot of customer data for segmentation purposes. You don't need to know that I'm Allison Nau, and you don't need to know my specific address. So you can remove that. You can replace it with some demographic information about me. And guess what? That's no longer personal data, because you're no longer able to tie that piece of information to me specifically. However, you're able to use that information and still retain it. And it's no longer covered under GDPR, so that you can do things like segmentation for marketing purposes, et cetera. And that's one of the options that I don't think is often explored when you think about what you need to do to dispose of personal data, because you do have the option to depersonalize it.
Wendy?
One of the things that I'd be recommending, and a lot of big dealers have been contacting us, is actually getting the data clean, because a lot of dealers have not got clean data as it stands at the moment, i.e. Who they sold the vehicle to, do they still actually own that vehicle? Are they marketing to them about a real purpose, or are they just marketing because they're on a database? We work with a partner where we can confirm if the car is still registered with that person, or has it changed keepers since, and then obviously do they still live at the same address? Let's get your database cleansed, and then at least you can go forward from there, because without that, you're actually starting from a dirty start point, and you need to be clean going forward. So if it was me, and a lot of people I've been speaking to, is let's get it done. We've been doing lots of cleansing with the dealers over the last few months.
David, you got any advice on that front?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a lot to do on the first party and what the data that the dealers own. There's an opportunity then to work with Google, Facebook, ask them, is there data that's available outside of my own walls that I may not have to go through the process of cleansing, making sure I have the right information or the right permissions to be able to use it. And then there's an opportunity there to maintain business as usual, finding people who are in market for vehicles, who are trying to, who are buying service outside of your own stores, and still be able to target them and reach them with your marketing on those platforms outside of what you have to do to maintain your own data from a GDPR perspective.
Now, you all deal with data in different ways. I mean, what piece of advice would you have for dealers to use the data that they have to ultimately make more money? Wendy?
Car or consumer?
Up to you.
Okay, on the car, making more money is making sure that they actually advertise it right. We see lots of times where there's missed opportunities, the vehicle value could be actually enhanced because there's a spec on that car, for example, that nobody knows anything about. When we started selling our spec check years ago, the very easy one was, has it got Bluetooth or hasn't it? Because how many times have we sold a car thinking it's got Bluetooth on just because it's got the phone on the steering wheel and actually it's not even connected? So it's all about, for me, for the dealer, it's about the specification of the vehicle, describe it correctly, but appraise it correctly in the first place. So when you're actually looking at the Partex, check that what specs on the car and then advertise it correctly, whether it be at auction or whether it be on the websites. And that's the best way to turn vehicles into a little bit more profit, because every single piece of kit that's on that vehicle will help sell that car a little bit quicker.
Alison, how can dealers use data to make more money?
I think it starts, if you think about, if you're talking about used cars, it starts when you are buying that used car, whether you're buying it at auction or you're buying it directly from a manufacturer or directly from a leasing company. How much are you paying for that car? And how much do you think you can retail it for, factoring in refurb costs, et cetera? Are you just looking at your own data, or are you looking at the market data? And then as that car, as you buy it, it gets transported to your site, maybe you do some refurb on it. Has the market changed since you initially bought it? So when you list it, are you listing it competitively? And then again, as that car remains on your forecourt, how are you continuing to adapt and respond to those market changes? We've seen dealers where there's been opportunities for them to actually increase the price of a vehicle. Prices don't always go down because market dynamics change. So I think it's really important to use not only your own data, but market data at each of those stages of the used vehicle life cycle to drive profitability.
Yeah, I mean, along those same lines, targeting people who are actually in market for a vehicle makes a lot of sense. Also, reducing waste in terms of serving ads to bots, serving ads that aren't viewable, that are in a unsafe environment. You know, I mean, I don't know what the industry average is, but the percent of ads that are not viewable, that are below the fold when you open a page, is very high. And we liken that to if you put a billboard on the side of the road and it was faced the wrong direction. That's what you're doing every time you're serving an ad that's not viewable. And so by simply employing more data to understand where those ads are running, you're going to be able to reinvest those dollars, those pounds, my American is showing, into driving more sales to dealership.
Nona?
I think from a legal point of view, we'd be more talking about how do you avoid fines, so not increasing your sales, because GDPR, your fines are going to be up to 20 million euros, it's 17 million pound. At the moment, the limit is 500,000 pound under the Data Protection Act. So it's going to affect processors more, I think, than data controllers. Car Finance 247. No, it's the wrong example. I won't go down that road. But if they were hacked, Car Phone Warehouse, that's the name I'm thinking of. Car Phone Warehouse, they were fined £400,000 for a hack. And that, bearing in mind, is why these fines are £500,000 tops. Come Friday, those fines are going to go up to 20 million. So I've had some dealers say to me, I'm not going to bother, GDPR doesn't apply to me, it doesn't really make any difference. Well, it will make a difference if somebody complains that you've not looked after their data and you end up with a fine that could be quite large. And Honda were fined £13,000 for a data breach for sending out nearly 300,000 emails to people that had not consented to those marketing emails. And it just took one person complained, one out of nearly 300,000 emails. So it doesn't take much for something to come to the attention of the Information Commissioner's Office. So yes, there's some great ideas for generating business, but don't think you don't have to worry about GDPR because you could end up with a sizable fine.
Do you think anybody is staring a fine in the face in our industry? Have you seen any examples, not naming any names obviously, but are you concerned about what you've seen so far and the way people have been preparing for it?
I think some people have put their head in the sand, to be fair, but I think the ICO are going to be going for the big guys, the Facebook, Cambridge Analytica and all that kind of stuff. They're going to go there, but they will go down. Individuals can be prosecuted as well, and people need to realise that. There are NHS workers that have had a nose at their neighbours' medical records and had a bit of a gossip about it. They've been reported and fined and prosecuted in a magistrate's court. So it's not just the big guys. The big guys will get the big fines, and I think the ICO will probably come out fighting because they will be funded by the fines that are coming in. They've got a lot of staff to pay their wages, so they will be out there fining people. I would hope they go for the big guys first, and I think if smaller businesses can go away and do their audit and log that through, then at least if the ICO come knocking, they can say, well, we did have a go, we've had a look, this is there, and this is what we thought was the right thing to do. You'll probably end up with an enforcement notice rather than a fine at that stage. But they will want to be fining people to get income to run their service.
Okay, well, I think we all realise that we still need data to do our jobs, and it's going to continue. So how can dealers, under these new rules and regulations, collect the data that they need to in a safe way? Have you got any tips of how they can actually get hold of that customer information and use it to market their services? Wendy?
Engaging at the beginning stage, getting the correct permissions when they're first talking to them customers if they've not had engagement with them before. I would suggest that obviously the safety of the vehicle and the service of the vehicle and making continued sort of connection with them, not just when it's for the next vehicle sale, build up a real rapport with them relationships. Some of the customers, some of the big dealer groups out there are doing really well at engaging with customers. There's lots of tools out there, analytical type tools that can keep you engaged and get you back into the dealership for a different purpose other than just another car sale. And really keeping, for me, it's keeping engaged with them, keeping in contact with them and not just leave it for the next car sale purchase. Do get them back in for incentives or, you know, offers. Dealers are brilliant at doing lots of, you know, offers for vehicles, whether it be on service or repairs or whatever. And really stay engaged. That would be that's how I kind of purchase sort of things, is the engagement and the loyalty from that customer.
Alison, how should dealers capture data now?
I think that one of the important things is as you're going through data cleanse processes, et cetera, you're trying to get your customer databases up to date, is make sure you put in the processes to maintain that. You know, whether that's a data cleanse every quarter, every 6 months, every year, but making sure that you're not just doing it as a one-off thing. Because if you do that, in 2, 3, 4 years' time, you're going to be exactly where you are today. And you're not going to have up-to-date information. So it's changing it from a one-off exercise to part of your business processes to demonstrate that you're keeping that information, that customer contact details, et cetera, up to date. Not only will that help with GDPR compliance, but it'll also mean that your marketing spend will be more efficiently allocated because it'll be, you know, the contact details will be correct. So I think it's really just embedding in your operational processes that you need to keep that data up to date and how you'll do that.
David?
Yeah, I think it's that, and it's working with partners who are very well versed in that as well and live and breathe in the space, so can help navigate some of these complex days that we're facing ahead.
Nona, what boxes need to be ticked from a legal perspective?
Well, I think as sorry, what was your name? David, as David just said, the people that you're working with, you know, make sure your processes are GDPR compliant, and if you're getting in data, make sure that person you're getting that data from has got consent or whatever they need. Because again, people have been fined for using marketing data lists that they have brought in, and they've just asked the person, have these people consented? And they've said, yeah, of course they've consented, and of course they haven't. So again, the ICO came knocking. They couldn't prove that those originally people had consented. So your own customers are fine. Remember, you just have to offer them the option to opt out. Don't worry about consent. You are just offering them the option to opt out every time you send them an email. That's legitimate interest. That is fine. If you're buying in data from somewhere else, as David said, you know, what was David, wasn't it? It's got the right name.
You nailed it.
Know, make sure your processors have got their processes in place, because, you know, it'll be your bottom line on the bottom line if it all goes bandy. So make sure you're working with the right people.
So is this a process that dealers should be managing themselves with internal staff, or is it now something that's become so complicated that external help is needed? What do you think?
Well, I think GDPR has been made to sound complicated, but if you've got more than 250 staff, you do need a data protection officer, and you've got to do things. It's all got to be a bit more official. Less than that, you still have to go through the process, because you have to have a privacy policy for your employees, you have to have a privacy policy for your customers, and you can't create those policies unless you've done a data audit. I know some people have said, oh, well, I've got less than 250 staff, so it doesn't apply to me. It does. It applies to all businesses with employees and customers. It applies to everybody. So get through the audit, get everything in place. And so it can be done, because for most dealers, it's not a big job. So you don't necessarily need someone whose full-time job title is Data Protection Officer. You don't necessarily need to get a GDPR consultant to come in. It can be incorporated in your business, but somebody has to do it. You have to go through the process, and you're going to have to review it every year. We've got a little system we've built in for our clients, and that's going to prompt them every year to say, you need to do your GDPR audit. So it's not a big job for a small business, but if you're a big player, then yeah, you need a data protection officer.
And finally, where do you think the biggest opportunity is for dealers at the moment with data? And what can they go back to their showrooms tomorrow and absolutely now when it comes to data? Wendy?
So if they were going back tomorrow, it's, again, have a look at the database. How accurate, how up to date is it? If not, get engaged and let's get it cleansed, let's get it sorted. Again, contact your customer base, opt in, make sure that you're engaging correctly, make sure that you know why you're contacting that person at that time. And again, as Alison sort of reiterated, keep doing it. Don't just stop doing it. You know, at the end of the day, once you've gone to the trouble of doing that cleanse, keep doing it. I mean, lots of people do it quarterly with those, monthly, annually. Some people, it can be done. It is being done in the industry at the moment, and keep on top of it so you don't get them fines.
Alison?
I think my own view is that we've spoken a lot about GDPR, and if you go back into the office tomorrow, that's not going to immediately improve your profitability. However, we've done more than a dozen data tests over the last 6 months with a variety of dealers, franchised, independent supermarkets, and every single one of them had cars that were mispriced on their forecourt. So I would say, check out the cars on your forecourt and make sure that they're priced in accordance to today's market, tomorrow's market, not what the market was when you first listed that car, because that will help your profitability tomorrow. GDPR, it's not like Friday's the drop dead date. It's going to continue after that. So, you know, that's going to be a journey that we're all going on. But for improving your profitability tomorrow, make sure your cars are priced right.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, I would say it's an opportunity to build back trust with customers. I mean, that's part of what led to GDPR is lack of transparency, lack of trust in the digital space. And so this can be an opportunity to message to your own customers in a way that rebuilds that trust, and to find new ones who, you know, you can speak to in a way that shows that you are valuing that relationship with them in a way that's going to build the relationship with you.
And Nona, in short, what are the dealers going to be concentrating on tomorrow?
I would get your audit finished and avoid the fines. These guys are all marketing. I'm about avoiding fines, so get your audit done, get your boxes ticked, and you're ready to go.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to my panel. Next up, 3 o'clock, we've got What Consumers Want, and we've got a panel of motoring journalists who are going to give the inside story with what your customers want from your showroom. So please put your hands together for my panel. was it?